Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nהיה b'dvaro. L'chaim, l'chaim. Oh, David's coffee. Psh. So we continue with the mimer. Roni v'simchi bas Tzion. Roni, but we're not actually on this mimer. We're not concentrating on the names. Roni v'simchi, my song, my joy. Bas Tzion, the daughter of Zion, the recipient. That's the daughter. So the question that was asked in this mimer, based on the previous Rebbe's mimer, the Alter Rebbe's discourse, is Parshas Baloischa speaking about lighting the menorah. So the Haftorah is about the menorah. But there is a whole preface that has nothing to do with the menorah. Why is that part of the Haftorah? Especially, and the Haftorah is read Shabbos Chanukah, because it's also menorah time. And this Shabbos, that question was asked Shabbos Chanukah, and I've asked the question also here at Parshas Bahaloischa, comes after Matan Torah, time of freedom, and the term Bas Tzion means a daughter of Zion, means a recipient, meaning when you are a recipient of the divine, which is specifically in a time of exile, right? Because in a time of exile is like when you have nothing of your own and you're just a recipient. It's a poor time, right? Poor in the sense, spiritually poor. That's what exile means. Sebastian is the idea of being poor, as opposed to Tzion, right, is a time of a redeemed time, a time of Shechina, of divine presence, which is the times of the Holy Temple. So this will be tied in with on the verse. It says, "Come and see the daughters of Zion in the king Shloimeh, that his mother crowned him." That's what the verse says. So the Medrash says that this is a metaphor. There's something literal to be taken here, but there's something metaphorically to be taken. And the metaphor is that the love was shown first as my daughter, then the love is shown as my sister, and then the love is shown as my mother. In other words, the king is crowned on three dimensions: my daughter, my sister, my mother, right? And what is the understanding? What does that mean? There are three things. There are three dimensions in crowning the king, God, right? Again, remember, this is a metaphor as we're understanding it. And in the divine service of God, there are three elements. There's the doing of mitzvahs, which is metaphorically my daughter. There's a study of Torah, which metaphorically is my sister. And then there is Mesirus Nefesh, self-sacrifice, which is metaphorically my mother. How so? How do we understand that? Well, mitzvahs is God's thing, right? Meaning it's his command and we do it. we're just a recipient. Right? God says, keep Shabbos, we keep Shabbos. God says put on tefillin, we put on tefillin. God says eat kosher, we eat kosher. As we're just a recipient of what He wants, and we fulfill it. We do it, right? L'chaim. And that's like a daughter. A daughter is a recipient from her parents, right? Right. Metaphorically, a daughter means she has nothing of her own. I just saw off my grandchildren of one family, the Shemto family, who they're driving now to New York. They live in Atlanta, and their daughters, and 3 daughters and a son, are all recipient of their parents who take care of them. They have nothing of their own, right? So we have nothing of our own when it comes to mitzvahs. We just do what God wants of us. We're a recipient of those mitzvahs, right? And in the end, when you put on tefillin, it's God's thing, right? Torah, metaphorically, the study of Torah, is like a sister. Well, sisters are equals, right? There's a give and take between sisters. Well, there's a give and take in Torah. Meaning, if you are now learning and not understanding, well, there's no give and take, right? The mitzvah is do what God wants. It's His thing. So we defer to Him and do what He wants from us. Torah is that you have to own it. It has to be absorbed in your mind, and you have to understand it. God's wisdom has to become your wisdom. So now it becomes your wisdom. So you're like a sister. There's an engagement that we have to have in that we make it ours. Right. In the actual process of learning, you're not just a recipient. Yes, you have to have the bittul, you have to put yourself aside and leave the baggage at the door. That's true, but in the end, in order that it becomes yours. Torah, we speak about owning it. Mitzvahs, we don't talk about owning a mitzvah. Maybe you could, but it's about doing God's will. Or it's God's wisdom. Well, God's wisdom, you have to make it your wisdom. Right? So in that sense, you're like a sister. We also speak about Torah as like you're calling God to learn with you, like your study partner, right? There's an equality on some level there. And then we have finally Chassidus Nefesh, which means self-sacrifice. Self-sacrifice as a mother. That's what a mother is all about. Sacrifice for the children, for the family. And therefore this, then we can understand. And in that sacrifice, right, we give something to God that God can't give us. Right? God can give us wisdom, and we have to entertain it. We have to absorb it. We have to own it. Right? So there's an equality somewhat there, in a sense. The self-sacrifice, God can't give you that because it's the self you're sacrificing. Only we can do it. In that sense, we're giving something to God. Right. Yesterday was Father's Day. What could you give a father that has every single tie, every single power tool? What could you give a father? that has it all. So what you can give a father is something that he doesn't have. Your sacrifice that he doesn't have, right? In other words, our darkness that we put aside, our challenges that we put aside in order to fulfill what God needs and wants of us. To put ourselves aside, only we could put ourselves aside. And therefore, in that sense, we're giving something to God that he doesn't have. We're giving the Father's Day gift every day. That's what we celebrate. Father's Day every day, right? Chaim. So with this, then we can understand, going back to crowning the king, right? It says the mother crowns the king because the mother's giving something to the king that the king can't have on his own, crowning him, meaning the self-sacrifice, right? In the metaphor is something that the king can't have on his own. Mitzvahs he has, Torah he has, right? Mitzvahs he gives us, we're the recipient. Torah, there's there's a somewhat of a more of an equality, but mother sacrifice, that's something that crowns the king. How did the Jewish people do that? How did we crown the king when the Torah was given? Because we said Nasa v'nishma. We said we will listen, God. We will do what you want, and then we will understand. That's sacrifice. That's sacrificing me, because the human, to be human, you need to understand, you need to appreciate, you need to have a feeling towards the mitzvah, and then you do it. And then you do it. The fact that you just do it, you just do the mitzvah, nasa, right? And then only then you will come to appreciate and understand and internalize it and so on, is a sacrifice, is what we call a bittul. It's the bittul of Mesiras Nefesh. It is the self-effacement, of self-sacrifice. Now, we can say further to add to this, this is why we read Parshas Baloischa now. Right? Parshas Baloischa, right? Tying it in with what we just is about the neiros, the candles, or the lights, not the candles. It wasn't candles, it was oil, right? From the menorahs, right? Why it's after the holiday of Shavuos. Because neiros, the flame, is a metaphor for the Neshamas Yisrael, the Jewish people. Right? Is the Jewish people. As the verse says, as King Solomon says in Mishlei, in Proverbs, Ner Hashem Nishmas Adam, the candle of God or the flame of God is the soul of man. So the flame of God, the light of God, which is the soul that shines, is giving something to God. When our soul is shining, we give something to God. As a Midrash says, that the idea of the menorah was not for the light that was needed in the sanctuary, Right? We learned that yesterday in Chumash and Rashi. It's not for the light that's needed in the sanctuary. It's a light that is needed for the world. So, of course, not the physical light, right? The light of the Jewish soul that is to shine in the world, the light of the menorah, the light of the sanctuary. And so for us to light to the world, well, who's the one who lights the world? God is the source of that. So we light up his world, we light him up. So with that, then we can understand the connection of why the Haftorah begins with Rani v'simchi bas Tzion, right? I'm sorry. No, on the contrary. Our question now, based on this, becomes even more profound because the issue is here, Basia. We just got finished explaining that we're like a candle, a soul that illuminates the world, God's world, and therefore we're illuminating God, so to speak, right? We're illuminating the divine. That means we're giving something. That's the mother. But how's Haftorah begin? Rani b'simchi basi, and daughter. Daughter is only recipient, not a giver, right? So why the emphasis on daughter of Zion? And this is all, understood in a metaphoric manner, right? So the idea, right, and daughter of Zion is not about self-sacrifice. It's not emphasizing self-sacrifice. It's as mother is the embodiment of self-sacrifice, right? Which, again, that's what brings the illumination to our soul, right? Illuminating, meaning we're giving something to God that God doesn't have. And that's what the lights are for. They're not for lighting up the sanctuary, giving light for the Kohen so he could see his way. No. So we are illuminating the world, God's world, the one who is the one who shines in this world. So we, by the shining, we're giving to him. So we'll understand this by appreciating that bringing down godliness into this world through the fulfillment of mitzvahs is the idea of Biti, my daughter, right? Is actually something even greater than my sister, and my mother. How could it be greater? We just got finished self-sacrifice. So what is it about doing mitzvahs, right, is even greater? Well, for that, you have to stay tuned and come back, right? You have to come back. So daughter is drawing down godliness through doing a mitzvah, right? So we're going to do a mitzvah now. We're going to pray. We're going to draw down godliness. put on tefillin, draw down godliness, give charity, draw down godliness, right? How is that greater than the self-sacrifice, which is really giving of yourself, right? Well, we'll have to stay tuned. We'll see you soon. Thank you, folks.